So this is a ZSPR update, and thank you, Peter Miller, for the naming of the acronym. I don't know why I hadn't thought of it, but I'm glad that you did. And it's certainly better than saying ZSPR over and over again. So this is going to be a longer one, and it being 10 days, I guess, and so I'm going to try to go through it more quickly. I had intended to do one a few days ago. Some things came up, and this is the kind of thing that I can really only do it at a certain time of day, and I like to do, unlike what I did today, which is I like to go through and at least watch parts of the games if I don't have time to watch all of them. Today I just I didn't watch any of them, actually, October 26th games. Before compiling this update, I just wanted to double check and make sure that I had worked everything out correctly. And so I went all the way back to Nashville and San Jose in Europe. So far this season, there have been 170 games played. Before going through today's, I went back through, before going over today's, I went back through the first 167 games, and I actually did find 2 mistakes. I had 165 games logged correctly, and I had 2 logged incorrectly, but of course, logging even one of them incorrectly creates or produces a domino effect, and so I had to go back and correct some things. And so this has been a bit of a slog putting this together, but again, it's long enough. And I think what I might do actually from now on to try to avoid a situation like that is to kind of go against what I've said before about this. I think what I might need to do actually is just do a few brief updates, maybe a few times a week. And because this is certainly not a static power rankings by any means, as you'll see as we go through the games. So without further ado, but just before getting to the teams and the games and the results, just wanted to, as a reminder, I guess, the criteria for this. And so that way, if you have any questions about where the teams are ranked, I mean, I'm happy to answer them for you if I can, but just keep in mind that by looking at the criteria, this is something, again, this is entirely not at all subjective. The ZSPR stands for zero subjectivity, or the ZS in the ZSPR does. So in other words, you should be able to refer back to this and answer your own question if you're wondering where a team is ranked. And sorry, I'm a bit tired at the moment, and so yeah, it is what it is, I guess. Anyway, so it really comes down to level of opponent and goal difference. And also too, you don't if you fall to the same number of points as a team that's lower than you, you don't fall below them until you actually have a lower number of points. Similarly, as you're climbing, in order to actually surpass a team, you can't just climb up and be tied with them. You have to have more points than them. Probably I'm stating the bloody obvious. So I wanted to put this slide in here first. This one is old news. This is out of date now. This is, goodness, what would this have been? From Saturday the 15th, I guess. So this is the one that I did for the last update that I did after the Saturday's games, and then the Sunday there weren't any games. But yeah, that's Saturday the 15th. This is where the teams were ranked at that time. So again, the 16th, there were no games. After October 17th, Dallas, they climbed to 119. And you can see here as well, you can see that some of the teams, I have to remember if I point at the screen that you can't see me pointing at the screen or pointing to it, like when I'm recording on the tabletop or on this desktop, you can actually see me moving my hands around. You can't see any hand movement for this. This will have to be my hand movement. Anyway, so as you can see here right now, these numbers aren't all in order. This is at the conclusion of the previous games, and so I have it here. I mean, I'm not going to read through all of these individually. It'll just make this video too long. And again, these are old games now, so I want to quickly get to some of the newer stuff. But this is sort of a breakdown. This is just how I do it to help me keep track of the games from day to day. I have the game score in there. -1 just means that they scored a goal in the empty net, or they won in overtime. It's possible as well. Like, come to think of it, Los Angeles over Detroit. This game went past 60, so lost, but you don't get credit for a goal past 60 or for an empty net goal. So that's why it's the 5-1 there for LA. And there's a few more like that as well. So these are the teams in order after that day. Dallas, you can see 119, just about broke 120. Because where's Dallas here? Yeah, they had a +6 that day for that win over Winnipeg, a decisive one at that. Up to October 18th, so again, before showing the exact movement, you can see here, because this is how I do it, this is how I figure it out. So Vegas, I move them up a number of points. Here's the results right here. And so you have Yeah, Vegas climbing back up, I guess, to 6. They would have been, well, they were at 111, but then, oh, so sorry. So they lost a couple of points, actually, is what happened. Boston lost that day. Vegas lost that day. Yeah, to Ottawa, and then Vegas, where are they here? Yeah, they lost to Calgary that day as well. And so they're in this order. Philadelphia snuck into the top row at this point. Pittsburgh's been pretty high up. Calgary's been pretty high up throughout the season. The Islanders have put a couple of wins together. And again, I don't want to talk too long about any one day's games. So for the 19th here, you can see that Philadelphia would have been knocked back. I think this is the day that they lost to Florida. Colorado obviously took a defeat there as well. And because they've had kind of an up-down start to their season. So yeah, Colorado losing to a Winnipeg. And even though it was in overtime, then Florida defeating Philadelphia, and St. Louis also, they needed extra time to defeat Seattle. So they didn't get as much. Like St. Louis started the day at, that doesn't, no, hold on. So yeah, 104. And so they just, because Seattle was in the bottom row and they didn't do it within 60. So St. Louis just got the 1 point bump there, which should actually be pointed out here. St. Louis plus 105. So this is after the 19th, I guess 1 week ago. This is exactly what they looked like. Spoilers, some teams, I won't mention anybody. I'm just going to kind of highlight them, draw circles around them. Suffered quite a heavy drop-off as a result of some more recent games, some more recent results. Anyway, after October 20th again, I know that Dallas has been losing, but they're losing to teams that are either in the top row and or just quite highly ranked at the time that they're being defeated by them. So, and Dallas as well, they were fortunate. I think at the time that they defeated Montreal, Montreal's ranking was a little artificially high. And of course, when they had those pair of wins over Nashville, Nashville's ranking was a little higher than it should have been, obviously. Nashville's got to figure out how to win on North American soil again. So, yeah, this would be the results, I guess, after the games on the 20th. So you can see here again a bit of a breakdown of that. Or, I mean, it's by breakdown. I just mean the game result, and then it shows how many points that they gained and or lost for that. So at this point, no team had broken 120, and no team had dipped below 80. And I kind of wondered when that would happen. It does happen eventually. Spoiler. So after October 21st, now October 21st, yeah, only a few games that day, so very little change, I guess, in the standings for that day. For the rankings, sorry, these aren't the standings; they are the rankings. Very little change in the rankings. Tampa, Florida, Detroit, Chicago, Seattle, and Colorado. So you can see those are the teams that played on that day. Their numbers are not where they should be, and so Colorado. Suffering another defeat to the Seattle Kraken. And so, yeah, that one cost them, even though it was a close loss, because Seattle was lower ranked, it cost them a little more. Anyway, I'm going back through stuff that I've gone through in other videos for this. So October 22nd, again, I am tired. Please bear with me. October 22nd here. Finally a team broke 120. I should actually have this slide first in order. I was going back and forth on how to do it. I don't even know if I need this slide. For some reason, I thought it would be a good idea to have it in there just to kind of show how I do it for what it's worth. I don't even know. Maybe I'm complicating the simple for myself, right? So, Dallas again. Yeah, this is the win, the aforementioned, the win over Montreal. That really, just because Montreal at the time came into that game with 103 points, and so they were in the second row, and so Dallas got a +3. For the defeat, and then all of the goals, none of them were in the empty net. So there's Pavelski's hat trick, and so they just +5. Sorry, +6. I was like Toronto there, +5, 104. This was the one other game, for the record. I had a mistake for a San Jose game, and then for this one, for some reason, I had Toronto up to 105 and Winnipeg down to 96 because I forgot to factor in the empty net goal and -1. But anyway, I should have corrected that domino effect. Toronto's 104 and Winnipeg is 97 rather than 105 and 96, which wouldn't have made a difference here. But then again, the domino effect, I don't know how else to put it, so I'm going to overuse that term. But as teams started moving around, the fact that I had Toronto miscalculated and also Winnipeg the same, it meant that I had to fix a few other things. So again, after October 23rd, just a handful of games that day. And I put stars or asterisks or whatever on either side of this game because this was the first real, New York at this point They'd come down a little bit. They'd lost some games backing up here a little bit, so they were in the top row. But they when's New York loss? So they basically New York loses big, and this is what happens to the Rangers. And then they so 107. If you look here, New York. They losing to San Jose. Enough said, right? They lost to San Jose, even if it was a close loss, and so losing to Columbus decisively, I think, would be the next one up for the Rangers, where they just really took a tumble. Here, what happened is some teams caught them. That's why you see them falling back from like 8th to 10th to 11th and so on. So this one here, they got knocked down to 99 points. Columbus got a +7 bump from that game. New York with the -8 down to 99. And so the Rangers find themselves in 19th just after a few, real critical losses. I know I have to stop uttering the phrase, It's a habit, a bad one at that. Anyway, so this is after October 24th, and Washington is winning again. The Winnipeg Jets picked up a big win. And, well, let's have a look here at the actual game results. Yeah, Washington, this is where they beat New Jersey decisively. And then Ottawa defeated Dallas. But again, Dallas coming into this one at 122 points. So they'd already had a cushion. And whereas Ottawa really benefited Ottawa, actually. I mean, it puts them in the top row. Dallas, of course, again, the -4 there to Ottawa, because Ottawa was already pretty highly ranked at the time that this happened. So it was just a -2 plus the 2-goal differential. So Dallas down to 118. And after October 25th, so Dallas, again, they took another loss down to 115, because, again, this was the game, double checking here, what game that this was for Dallas. And it's probably I'm hovering right over it. Oh, right here. So Boston. But again, the 3-1, this wasn't a huge loss. Boston is already highly ranked. So Dallas is just finding ways to lose to teams that are also ranked up high, and they're losing these games not by a whole lot. So, but Calgary, they're now at 122. Vegas 118. Whoops. And yeah, Dallas, Boston, Ottawa, Chicago. I mean, I know it doesn't look right seeing them here, but again, this is just the numbers. They just keep, they keep adding to their total because they keep finding ways to win. So that's why Chicago is there. Pittsburgh, again, they've suffered some tough losses, but they've been to teams that are also pretty high up. So this reflects that. But Edmonton here, yeah, they 212 points, and so I guess this is, this is the most recent one. So not a whole lot of change in the final day. I guess going back here, I feel like something might have been, sorry if something else is a little out of order there. Edmonton, Calgary. Yeah, Edmonton got up to 108 points. Oh, yeah, 108 and then the 112 because Edmonton defeated St. Louis. So I'm just going to skip ahead to the end of this. This is where the teams are ranked at present. So you have Calgary at 102, Vegas, 102, goodness. 122, Vegas, 118, Dallas, 115 has fallen back to third. Boston in fourth right now. Boston, so this, to me anyway, this does reflect Boston's having a pretty strong campaign. And Vegas as well, you got to remember, if you look at like a recent Vegas loss, it was, and they defeated Toronto, which is worth a little something. And in between, or in and around there, they lost to Colorado, but that was only by a single goal. And Colorado themselves, not exactly a low-ranked team. So the loss is really, like, New York's problem is that they had to go and lose by a bunch of goals to Columbus, really. And then what was the Rangers? Oh, yeah, and then they had to be shut out by Long Island. That was a -7 defeat for them because the Islanders at that time were in the bottom row. So -4 and then -3 for that. Anyway, I realize now looking at it inadvertently, I've probably confused some. So let's just look at I mean, by looking at some of these slides here that precede the game results. And so, yeah, here it is. before it gets any later. Again, I did have to go back through all 167 games and then the 3 games today. I just wanted to triple check and make sure. I wanted to be more than sure that I had this correct. And so here it is at the moment. Oh, Buffalo. I should have mentioned Buffalo. They spent some time. They had a cup of coffee and then some in the top row. They were doing really well. And one might argue that Buffalo should still be in the top row. But when you get your donkey's cousin kicked by Seattle, and that really benefited Seattle. They've been sort of lingering at or near the bottom row. So Seattle got a +8 for that. Don't I have, I think I have asterisks by that game result as well. Yeah, here they are. So bottom corner here, Buffalo and Seattle. 4 goals, a decisive loss. Seattle, I guess none were in the empty net. I'm trying to recall and think back now. So Seattle got a +8 result from that. And Buffalo, again, losing to a team that at the time was in the bottom row. And losing by a 4-goal margin. So Buffalo did get knocked back there to 106, and Seattle got that +8 bump up to 97. So Ottawa's doing really well. The Oilers are starting to pick it up again. Carolina hasn't really gone anywhere. Again, there was that close loss close losses in Alberta, but they're winning their share. Chicago, again, feels like a bit of an aberration, but until proven otherwise, right? The numbers, our opinions don't have to favor them. The numbers do. They're winning, simply put. Pittsburgh, Florida, been kind of an up-down, more up than down. Again, Buffalo mentioned. Philadelphia, somewhat surprisingly, and again, they are starting to lose some games, but remember, they were in the top row. So, and I guess this is just a reflection and indication as well that they're not losing by a whole heck of a lot. Tampa Bay at 99 kind of surprises me, but again, they're losing to the wrong teams at the wrong times, I guess, just enough. I mean, the Islanders, they defeated the Islanders. I'm thinking the Islanders and Rangers now. But anyway, there it is. And again, I went back and I checked everything again earlier today. And so it looks a little ridiculous seeing New York here, I know. But this is the kind of thing that... Again, what goes around comes around, I guess. I was talking about this actually with my father, and that's what he mentioned, and he's a Penguins fan. So this, if anything, when Pittsburgh was trailing Dallas a few days to a week ago and unable to surpass Dallas, and Dallas, of course, you could argue, because of some of their results that I mentioned, the record was a bit, their numbers, I should say, not the record, but their ranking. Rating, well, this number here is a rating. So the rating was a bit inflated, and as a result, concurrently, their ranking was a bit inflated. But Pittsburgh just couldn't quite catch them. But again, Dallas, all that it's going to take is a decisive loss to a lower ranked team. And New York has found that out the hard way. New Jersey got quite a bump from a recent result. New Jersey's been kind of a seesaw season so far, though. Decisive loss to Washington, but then the decisive win over Detroit, the dominant win over Detroit, at least on the scoreboard. So anyway, and Anaheim is now, after that loss to Tampa Bay, -4, because again, which might seem like, maybe it shouldn't cost you, there's that, again, it shouldn't cost 4 points, but Tampa Bay has been hovering or lingering in the second lowest row here for a bit. So I feel like they've been reasonably good. It's just that other teams have been a little bit better, at least slightly better so far. They've been performing slightly better, one might argue. Now, they only got a couple points because the one goal was Nick Paul's was in the empty net. And so it was just a +1 for defeating a team in the bottom row, plus the +1 margin difference. So they're here, but Anaheim, on the other hand, this affected them a little bit more because Tampa Bay is not had Tampa been higher ranked, it would have hurt Anaheim a little less. So right now, this is Anaheim as the lowest ranked team. Vancouver could be thanking them for that because the Canucks were the lowest ranked team. And again, San Jose, I'm sick of looking at this logo and the Sharks. Actually, it's nothing personal. It's just that one of the 2 games that I had calculated or logged in correctly was a San Jose game. Can't even remember which one right now. The other one, though, as mentioned earlier, was the Toronto-Winnipeg result. I forgot to factor in the empty net goal. So anyway, I figured again after, and I mentioned I think a couple of times in comments earlier in the week that if I didn't get an update out after a day where the games were light, I was just going to keep falling behind. And so I might do a couple of these a week. I might just, anyway, so thank you for bearing with me if you've given this one any time or consideration. And I assure you the next one, again, now that I'm not going to go back and I'm not going back to Europe. I'm not going back to game one. Because, again, I was updating this quite often, and then I took 10 days away from it. So I just wanted to make sure that nothing had fallen off. And I'm really glad that I did that, because I did. Again, I had 165 games logged correctly, but I had 2 logged incorrectly, which produced this domino effect that I had to go back and switch a bunch of other stuff around. So I am reasonably confident now that everything is correct. Anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know if there are any surprises here. I know I've sort of already mentioned a couple that I'm surprised by. I'm just gonna circle them, but I shouldn't be, though. Chicago, again, they've put wins together, so albeit somewhat slowly, because they're not exactly knocking off any contenders at this point. But again, cumulatively, because they've put a few together, they find themselves in the top row. This means that they're ripe for one of these teams in the bottom 3 rows getting quite a bump from a win over Chicago, certainly if they can do it by a margin of a few goals or greater. So, all right, good night. Bye for now.